Hey everyone! Welcome back to StoryHive channel, your go-to place for the best Reddit stories on the web. If you love diving into amazing tales, crazy confessions, and heartwarming moments from Reddit, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. My entitled sisters demanded that I let them rent out my vacation home for profit. When I refused, their husbands broke in and are now facing charges. Happened today. My folks decided to host a barbecue because, I guess, that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my two sisters, their husbands, or their kids. My wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured my wife, and long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed and drunk. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews, ages 7 to 11, more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with a small cooler full of beers. My wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and had a frozen margarita. My sisters and their husbands took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and screwing up the vibe. Whatever. Typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, two of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in but didn't fall, so she only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. She just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. My sisters and their husbands thought it was all great fun. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool, chatting with someone. I saw three of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit young kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All three of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing. But their moms, who, as I mentioned, were pretty shit-faced, absolutely freaked out. Apparently, two of the kids couldn't swim, even though they were in swimsuits. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish the kids out. The kids were bawling their heads off like they lost a limb. At that point, all hell broke loose. The four drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general and me in particular for nearly letting their kids drown, and also because two of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brothers-in-law got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his BMI and BAC made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help, unsurprisingly, given that my sisters were still bitching at everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids, and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. My wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face-planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the little shits knock me into the pool, have their fun, and ruin my phone. Side note, Dad, of course, never got out of the whirlpool. Relevant comments and thoughts from the OP. I realized they're just kids and they were just having fun. The fact that they thought this was okay is more of a reflection on their parents than on them. I just wish we hadn't gone. It's nice to see my folks and their neighbors, but I really don't like my sisters or their husbands. They don't hide their envy of us, and they're just exhausting to be around. More about why OP doesn't care for some of his family. It's more of an oil and water sort of thing. I've never been close to my sisters. They're 8 and 10 years older than me. I also don't have much in common with their husbands. They're okay guys, but I just don't care about the things that are important to them and vice versa. I do know that the four of them are somewhat envious of our lifestyle. Both sisters are stay-at-home moms, and both husbands make good money. One makes noticeably more than I do. But both my wife and I have professional careers. We don't have kids, and we're way more responsible with money. As a result, we have a lot more investments, etc., and we don't have to drive cars full of kid debris. We take nice trips once or twice a year. It definitely grates on both sisters and, by extension, their husbands, so we get some petty behavior from them on an ongoing basis. Overall, neither my wife nor I enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip the get-together. It's just not worth it to me, but my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. Hopefully, next time she won't feel guilt into going. That's probably the one positive thing that will come out of this. My wife is much more tolerant and forgiving than I am toward my siblings, but based on what she was saying on the way home, I think she's had it with them as well. Your dad sounds awesome. Yeah, my dad's very chill. He loves being around groups of people, used to be in sales, likes people to enjoy themselves, and is definitely enjoying life as a retiree. He and two other guys with him just sat there and watched the show. Mom's cool too, but the situation upset her. The kids are fine. By the time I left, they were inside watching TV. I think they're 7, 9, 10, 10, and 11. It was the middle three who played kamikaze with me. I'm guessing the 11-year-old egged them on. She's usually the ringleader. You phrased the part about your parents hosting a barbecue oddly. I had to shorten the post to fit in the character limit. My folks are gregarious and like to have people over. They have the classic great for entertaining house and are always coming up with a reason to get together. They'd wanted everyone to be at their place for the 4th of July, but one of my sisters and her family were on vacation, so this was a fake 4th of July party complete with flags, red, white, and blue decorations, barbecue, a margarita machine, etc. Sparklers were promised to the kids. My nieces and nephews were the only kids there. All of the neighbors are older like my parents. OP is voted not the a-hole. Update post. August 17th, 2023, almost 1 month later. First off, my folks tell me that my nieces and nephews are all good swimmers and that they use the pool all the time. The 7-year-old is still a beginner, but he loves the water. My sister just said they couldn't swim to look bad. To be fair, none of the kids are allowed in the deep end, which is where they fell in. It was the two 10-year-olds and the 9-year-old who tried to push me into the pool. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law, who face-planted while yelling at me, had to go to an urgent care place and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very unhappy about this. Later that evening, my sister started a group text and said some really nasty things. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. My wife and I blocked the 4 of them. My mom called me. She was pretty upset about what they said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the texts, my folks insisted my sisters and their husbands come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules. Mom's wording. The result was a contrite, if unenthusiastic, apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying what I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further since I thought things were settled. I unblocked them that evening. I got a text from one of the brothers-in-law asking when I'd be paying for the phones, which cost $1,200. WTF? I replied, never, took a screenshot of his text, and forwarded it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We're going no contact with my sisters and their spouses, and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be present. Then I blocked the sisters and their spouses again. At that point, the really hit the fan. Dad called them and ripped them a new one. Among other things, he told them the grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely since my mom regularly provides free babysitting. That got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and Mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sister's families use the place a lot, including having their friends up for weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. For reference, I never wanted my sisters to know we owned the place. We bought it for my folks. They'd always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner, and they left a note. One sister also called me at work. I sent her to voicemail. We've decided that being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for the last 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can go pound sand. How life has been. It's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. They're not toxic. They're not bad people. They're just tiresome and petty. I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it and decide who uses it when they aren't. We pay for all the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow-up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property when my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it, and such. But now we know we'll just sell it. If we want to go to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. Parents, yeah, my folks aren't dumb. They're pretty laid back, though very much live and let live. I figure they'll ease up on all of this soon, but that's their decision. We still won't be attending any family events for the foreseeable future. What sucks for my sisters? They're probably very worried that I'll keep them from using the cabin. I won't. That's up to mom and dad until they are older. It puts an end to one of my sister's fantasies of building a compound of houses when we inherit the property, which I've known about for some time and just ignored. Normally, the lots up there only have one area that can be built on, but this piece of property is way larger because it's at the end of a road. At least 3 houses with great views could be placed on that land. They're not genuinely sorry, they just want things from you. I agree completely. Their apologies aren't sincere, and I have no plans to interact with them anytime soon. Regarding them using the vacation home, that's really my parents' decision. Yes, technically, I own it and cover all the expenses, but I bought it for them and gave them day-to-day control over it. They're good people, and they always wanted a getaway place for the family, but there's no way they could have ever bought it themselves. I could afford to buy it for them because I've been fortunate financially, saving, investing like a demon. Plus, I got a massive bonus the same year I sold my home and moved in with my now wife. I don't care if my folks let my siblings use the house, but I will admit I'm enjoying my sister's discomfort over finding out that I could afford to buy the place and let my folks use it while never mentioning it to them. Dad changed the lock code when they went up last week, so now only he, mom, my wife, and I have it. Regarding mom babysitting the kids, she tells me that once a week she and sometimes dad have been going over to each sister's place and spending the day with the kids. When school starts, she's going to pick each set up from school once a week on separate days and take them home, spending the evening with them. She says the 5 of them together stress her out, but separately they're fine. Mom and dad have both told me they don't plan on having my sisters and their families back to their place in the foreseeable future and that they're enjoying the quiet. My guess is that they were already tired of the old dynamic and used the pool party nonsense as an excuse to make some changes to the relationships. One fun note, the post was removed from I Am the Asshole, according to the message I just read from the other sub's moderator. The violence was property damage. I still don't get it. The phone's being ruined, I guess. Ridiculous. Update to the update. August 26, 2023, 9 days from previous post. Well, it's been an interesting last few days. I thought the situation had hit the fan before, but it was more of a fart compared to what's happened this week. For this to make sense, I need to provide some financial context. My folks haven't ever been any good at saving money. I've been doing their taxes for years, so I know pretty much everything about them money-wise. Their house is paid for and they have minimal debt, but they didn't save much for retirement. Both of them get Social Security. Dad gets a solid pension, and they have a bit of savings, but there's no treasure chest in the basement. I bought their current car for them after they retired, a retirement present, so they could have something nice to drive. It was the first car in probably 20 years they didn't lease. My sisters are convinced the folks are dripping with money and that our parents will be leaving the 2 of them everything. Since I don't need more money, they've never cared about saving either. It turns out my oldest sister and her husband, they have 3 kids, have been living beyond their means for some time and are in financial straits. They've maxed out their credit cards and are behind on their car leases to the point that one is about to get repossessed. He bragged in the past about making X per year, but it turns out to be about half that. She confessed all this to mom on Tuesday because they need a loan and because this was a WTF moment for mom and dad. She's been renting out the vacation house once a month or so and pocketing the cash for the last 3 years. We're talking $2,000 plus for a weekend and at least $4,000 for a week. With her being cut off from using the place, she's had to cancel one group already. She's now worried they'll lose everything. My folks aren't in any position to give them a loan. My other sister was aware of her renting out the place but, of course, hasn't ever said anything. I suspect she's done the same thing as well because I went up there once to drop off an ATV I had worked on, and there was a family there who claimed to be staying there with my sister's family and that they'd gone to town for something. At the time, I let it go. I figured she'd loaned out the house to some friends, but I've always wondered. I found all this out through my folks, who are pretty stressed out about it. Mom more than Dad. He's mainly just pissed off about it all. I know Dad feels betrayed, and I imagine he's embarrassed that he's in no position to help his daughter out. He did reiterate that as long as it's up to him, the girls won't be using the vacation home anytime soon. My folks let me know what's going on because they figured my sisters would put a full court press on me next, and they were right. On Thursday, my sisters came to our place again without their husbands this time and waited outside the door until I got home. I had to choose between fighting with them in public, them making a scene if I went in without them, or letting them in, so I let them in. I got a story from the older sister with the younger one backing her up regarding why I needed to let them use the mountain place again immediately. They also said I've been a shitty brother and that I needed to step up and plan on paying for their kids' college tuition since that's what family does. I let them pitch their story, then called them out based on what my folks had told me. Things went from there. There was denial, crying, cursing, yelling, you name it. I swear my ears are still ringing 2 days later. Won't lie, I said some really mean and shitty things to them, but nothing that wasn't true. They finally left after about an hour. After that, I took a shower and laid down. When I got up, my wife was home and her first words were that she'd had to block more phone numbers because my sisters were blowing up our phones from new ones. When I got, folks messaged me yesterday asking me to call. I'm sure my sisters have told them some version of what happened, but I'm not up to rehashing it yet. I'm usually a pretty energetic person, but this drama has me beaten down. I had just enough energy today to drive up to the vacation house and padlock the entrance gate shut. I'm the only one with a key. I'm guessing that will be enough to ensure my siblings leave the place alone. They'd probably die trying to walk 400 yards uphill to get to the house. Update 3 post. September 12th, 2023, 2.5 weeks from last update, yet another update regarding the cluster F that is my extended family. I thought it might be time given what's gone on over the past 2 weeks. After my sisters came to my place, my mom and dad told me they were done with managing the vacation home. It sounded like the sisters had been pressuring them to let them use the place again. Basically, my folks handed the responsibility for the place over to me and told me it was my problem from here on out. Up until then, they'd kept track of who would be using it when, and they'd taken care of routine maintenance, replacing worn-out items, etc. In any case, they decided they didn't want to be in the middle of all this crap. While I don't blame them, I'm disappointed because the damn place was supposed to be something for them to enjoy and hang out in, and they use it regularly. Plus, I've never cared that they let my sisters and their families use it because, really, I've always thought that was my parents' call even though I technically own it. But now my folks are going to be in the position of not having access without me being involved, and that changes the whole dynamic of the place. I've taken several steps to secure the place. I already mentioned that I locked the gate. It has a heavy-duty chain and the best lock I could find. I also did a full reset on all the door keypads and created all new codes. Security cameras got installed yesterday, which is actually pretty cool because the installer convinced me to put a high-res one that looks out over the valley. The system cost me way more than I thought it would, but the peace of mind is worth it. The installer also put up signs on the property saying the place was monitored by video. Regarding the family dynamics, the whole situation is so messed up. Your sisters are clearly entitled and have been taking advantage of your generosity for years. The fact that they even expected you to pay for their kids' college tuition just shows how little they respect your boundaries. Your decision to go no contact sounds like the right move. On the vacation house, it's unfortunate that the vacation house, which was meant to be a special place for your parents, has become a source of such stress and conflict. It's good that you're taking steps to secure it and ensure it remains a peaceful retreat for you and your parents. About your parents, it's understandable that they'd want to step away from the drama. They've had to deal with so much, and it's good they're letting you take over the responsibility. They seem like reasonable people who are just trying to navigate a difficult situation. Update. October 16th, 2023. I installed a heavy-duty lockout on the water shut-off drain valve, hoping I lose the keys because if I don't, removing it will be a hassle. Only my wife and I have the keys, and I haven't informed anyone else about the water being shut off. Last week, I received calls at my office from both of my brothers-in-law. They were trying to convince me to let them use the vacation home as usual. The older brother was upset because he couldn't get past the gate lock. He was angry and embarrassed, threatening to rip the gate out if necessary. He also admitted they had been renting out the place for extra cash and claimed I was ruining their business. I should have recorded the call, but I'm not sure how to do that from an office phone. The other brother-in-law, I suspect, was pressured by my sister to make the call. He didn't argue much when I told him not to expect to use the place again. I've told them they can't use the house and to not ask again. I'm now considering selling the vacation home, as my wife and I don't use it enough to justify keeping it, and there won't be any family gatherings there soon. My parents didn't have a strong reaction when I mentioned selling. They think I could more than double my money by selling. The place is on 3 lots with great views and is at the end of a private road. I'll probably wait to sell, as doing so now would be an emotional decision. My sisters and I are not speaking, and I have no intention of reaching out. On a positive note, we had a nice dinner with my parents last week at a new restaurant. They updated us on the nieces and nephews, but no one brought up the vacation home situation. Update: November 27th, 2023. A lot has happened recently. My brothers-in-law broke into the vacation home and were arrested. They've been charged with breaking and entering, destruction of property, and communicating threats, all Class 1 misdemeanors. I've decided not to drop the charges, though I might reconsider if they fully pay for the damage. They broke into the house using an angle grinder to cut through the chain on the driveway gate, damaged the front door, and forced entry through the utility door. They also broke into the barn for unknown reasons. David, the property manager I hired, saw the break-in through the cameras and called the sheriff. The brothers-in-law tried to argue their way out of it, but failed. They were arrested and apparently made threats about me in front of the police. David, the property manager, is excellent. He sends photos of wildlife and sunsets, which is making me want to visit the house. I haven't yet seen the damage in person but plan to soon. I've contacted attorney friends for advice on pursuing legal action, including possible restraining orders. Some background. One of the brothers-in-law had no idea about the cameras or the property manager. My parents didn't tell them to avoid more drama. My wife is completely fed up with the situation and wants no part of it moving forward. The older brother-in-law might not face job repercussions, but the middle brother-in-law could due to his security clearance. Several people have suggested turning the vacation home into an Airbnb, but I'm not considering it right now due to potential family drama and stress for my parents. Update: December 2nd, 2023. Things are starting to settle. On Thursday, I received a couriered letter from my brothers-in-law, which included a $5,000 cashier's check and a sincere apology. They acknowledged their wrongdoing and requested that I drop the charges. They also agreed to stay away from the vacation home unless explicitly invited. I had already scheduled a meeting with an attorney regarding a lawsuit. The attorney recommended a settlement agreement rather than a prolonged lawsuit. The agreement will include a civil restraining order and a requirement for the brothers-in-law to cover legal fees. My property manager estimated the repair costs to be around $4,000. My attorney contacted the brothers-in-law, who agreed to the terms and will get their own lawyers. They are willing to sign the agreement and pay the additional $2,500 as the final settlement. I'm waiting for the agreement to be finalized and signed. Final update: December 7th, 2023. I met with my attorney and reviewed the settlement agreement. It included a clause for them to cover my attorney's fees of about $3,000. They initially resisted but eventually agreed to the terms. The final agreement includes a no-contact clause and a release of all other liabilities. I checked the property and was shocked by the damage. The emotional toll has been significant. I've decided to move on from this situation and not pursue further legal action unless necessary. The vacation home will remain with us for now, and I'm closing this chapter of my life. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this ordeal. I appreciate it more than I can express. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.